For 2 decades, the automotive industry promised that replacing large engines with tiny, turbocharged ones would slash carbon emissions and save drivers thousands at the pump. Instead, real-world data reveals that these miniaturized power plants often consume 20% more fuel than the engines they replaced when driven in the real world. This is the story of how engineering theory collided with the uncompromising laws of thermodynamics. We were told that a 1.0-liter 3-cylinder engine could do the work of a 2.0-liter 4-cylinder on a laboratory test bench that looks like a miracle of efficiency. But on a rainy Tuesday on a highway incline, the physics tell a completely different story. This video explores the engineering trade-offs, the thermal limitations, and the regulatory loopholes that led to the rise and fall of the downsized engine. We will look at why displacement still matters, and why the industry is now quietly pivoting to a concept called right-sizing. To understand why downsizing failed, we have to look at the fundamental engineering principle of pumping losses. In a traditional naturally aspirated engine, the pistons act like a giant air pump. At low loads, like when you are cruising through a neighborhood, the engine is trying to suck in air through a mostly closed throttle plate. This creates a vacuum, and the engine has to waste energy fighting that vacuum to pull air into the cylinders. This is a massive efficiency killer. Engineers realized that if they made the engine smaller, the throttle would have to stay open wider to maintain the same speed. This reduces the vacuum, lowers the pumping losses, and makes the engine more efficient on paper. By adding a turbocharger, they could force-feed that tiny engine enough air to make big power when the driver stepped on the gas. It seemed like the perfect compromise. The fuel economy of a commuter car with the passing power of a sports sedan. But this theory relied on a very specific set of circumstances that rarely exist in the real world. Here's where the chemistry of combustion starts to fight the mechanical engineering. Every gasoline engine wants to run at a specific ratio of 14.7 parts air to 1 part fuel. This is known as the stoichiometric ratio. At this point, the fuel burns completely and the catalytic converter works at peak efficiency. However, turbochargers work by compressing air, which dramatically increases the temperature of that air before it even enters the cylinder. As the piston compresses this hot air further, the temperatures inside the combustion chamber skyrocket. If it gets too hot, the fuel will ignite prematurely, a phenomenon known as knocking or detonation, which can shatter a piston in seconds. To prevent this, engineers have to employ a trick called fuel enrichment. They spray extra gasoline into the cylinder, not to burn it for power, but to use the evaporating liquid fuel to cool the metal components. Suddenly, that tiny, efficient engine is dumping massive amounts of extra fuel down the exhaust pipe just to keep from melting itself. In high-load situations like climbing a hill or merging onto a highway, a downsized turbo engine can actually be less efficient than a 5.0-liter V8. That brings us to the massive gap between laboratory testing and reality. For years, the automotive industry used the New European Driving Cycle, or NADC, to rate fuel economy. This test was incredibly gentle. It featured slow accelerations and long periods of idling. Because the test never pushed the cars hard, the turbochargers rarely stayed at full boost, and the engines never hit the enrichment phase. Manufacturers tuned their software specifically to ace these tests. They optimized the gear ratios and the fuel maps for the exact speeds required by the regulators. But when consumers took these cars home, they drove them differently. They used the air conditioning, they carried passengers, and they drove at 70 miles per hour. Under these conditions, the small engines were constantly working at their thermal limits. This discrepancy became so large that regulators eventually had to scrap the old tests in favor of the worldwide harmonized light vehicles test procedure. As soon as the tests became realistic, the supposed benefits of downsizing started to vanish. Beyond the thermal issues, we have to consider the mechanical stress on the components. In a large displacement engine, the internal parts are robust, and the engine produces high torque at low revolutions per minute. A downsized engine has to spin much faster and use much higher cylinder pressures to generate the same force. This creates a phenomenon called low-speed pre-ignition, or LSPI. This is a violent combustion event that happens when the high pressures inside a tiny engine cause droplets of oil and fuel to ignite before the spark plug even fires. To combat this, engineers have to use even more complex fuel injection strategies and specialized synthetic oils. This increases the cost and complexity of the engine while reducing its long-term reliability. Furthermore, the higher rotating speeds lead to increased friction. Even though the engine is smaller, the pistons are moving up and down more times per mile, wearing out rings and bearings faster than a lazy, slow-turning larger engine would. This is why many fleet buyers, who care about total cost of ownership over hundreds of thousands of miles, became the first to sound the alarm on downsizing. So, what is the industry doing now? They are moving toward right-sizing. This is the realization that there is an ideal displacement for every cylinder, usually around 500 cubic centimeters. Instead of making the engine smaller, engineers are keeping the displacement but changing how the engine breathes. We are seeing the return of 2.0 and 2.5-liter engines that use the Miller cycle or the Atkinson cycle. These systems keep the intake valve open longer during the compression stroke, effectively reducing the compression ratio while keeping a high expansion ratio. This allows the engine to be incredibly efficient at low loads without needing to dump extra fuel for cooling at high loads. Mazda and Porsche have been leaders in this shift, proving that a larger, naturally aspirated or lightly turbocharged engine can achieve better real-world fuel economy than a tiny engine pushed to its breaking point. They are focusing on thermal management through high-pressure direct injection and variable valve timing, rather than just shrinking the block. Ultimately, the failure of downsizing teaches us that you cannot outsmart the second law of thermodynamics with a clever marketing brochure. Engineering is always a balance of trade-offs. While downsizing helped manufacturers meet arbitrary fleet targets in the short term, it ignored the reality of how humans actually drive. The future of the internal combustion engine isn't about getting smaller, it is about getting smarter. By combining right-sized engines with small electric motors in hybrid configurations, we can eliminate those pesky pumping losses without sacrificing thermal efficiency. We are moving toward a world where engines are designed for the highway, not just the laboratory. The next time you see a tiny engine with a giant turbocharger, remember that more power from less metal usually comes with a hidden cost at the fuel pump. True efficiency isn't about the size of the engine, but how effectively it converts heat into motion across the entire range of human experience. The laws of physics are uncompromising, and the automotive industry is finally starting to listen. The era of downsizing is coming to a close, replaced by a more honest approach to engineering, one that respects the driver as much as the regulator. It's a lesson in humility for the industry, and a win for anyone who values real-world performance. Because in the end, you can't fake the numbers at the pump. The journey toward true efficiency continues, guided by data, not just theory. This is the future of the internal combustion engine. Right-sized, refined, and ready for the road. Thanks for watching the story of the downsizing delusion.